no, I just clicked over there. Turn down the phone speed. Okay. Okay. Okay, folks, this is a continuation of our December 14th board meeting. It's the end of the year where we close up our books for the year. What I would like to do first of all, we don't need to do the Pledge of Allegiance because it's a continuation of the same meeting, but I would like to have a moment of silence. I'm sure everybody has heard about George Mathis. Unfortunately, he had passed away. Past planning board member, past zoning board member, and a past town supervisor. So if we could all just have a moment of silence for George and his family. Thank you. I'd also, before we get going here to get the rest of this taken care of, I'd like to say thank you to our highway department that worked their butts off that storm. I know I was out on Friday and it was a 3-hour trip into town and back again. And then somebody called me and said, hey, I'm lost on East Lee Road. I can't even see the road. So I did a U-turn and went back up there and they sat on my flashing lights all the way back home again. Because they had I guess all of a sudden the heat went out in their car and the inside of the windshield started fogging up and they couldn't scrape, and so they could see my 4-way flashers and they followed me all the way home. Also to the fire department, not just ours, but all those in the county, they worked pretty hard too. Warming center, I was in contact with Ben Flansburgh, and he asked me, please don't advertise. It was in the hub quite a bit, but there was quite a few people in there and they're running out of food and water. Yeah, that's what they did, is that when they could, fire department would load a bunch of them up and they take them to the school. I think there was one other place they took them to also. So they were busy. I spoke with emergency services, Niederhofer, and he said that they were getting more food and water for the fire department as well as for the others as well. So everybody was working their butts off in very, very, very bad conditions. Ambulance services, it was horrendous for them. Anybody, they had what was a 3 or 4 car pileup on East Lee Road, and they had to transport a couple of those people to Strong Memorial Hospital in that storm. So everybody worked very hard in very bad conditions. So I just want to make note that everybody came through, everybody helped out. Emergency service people worked extremely long hours. So, and Dale, try talking to him, he bit your head off. I don't want to talk to you right now. Goodbye.
Got things to do. Hands were full.
Okay. Everybody have a chance to look at the bills?
For landscaping out front here.
Yes.
I guess I was confused because I thought that we were talking about it, that the highway guys were gonna be doing that. I didn't remember ever actually talking about having someone else come in and do that.
We had them come on in to do, what they did is they dug out all the turf to the shape that Dale and I talked about for out front there. And then he got special steel edging, which he shaped so that it could be placed in there. So it looks, if you take a look at it, it's the same on both sides of the sidewalk, and then he picked up the stone and brought the stone in and dumped it as well.
Well, I guess it's not necessarily what he did. I was just, we never talked about it or like if it was just all, now there's a bill. And I just was curious as to I guess, like when we talked about it in the meetings, I know that it was brought up that, um, that you would talk to a landscaper. And then it was, but the guys can do, so we were talking about the, drainage. You think,
They did
which
that.
the guys were going to do, but then there was, so. At the end of that meeting, and my understanding was just that the guys, the highway guys were going to. Do that, and so I just,
From my point, no. We never discussed it, that we were putting any time perspective. We were becoming professional landscaping.
And plantings going in, will be the BBC they've offered in the past. I've just kind of like held them off until this was taken care of. They did pull out the big bushes because they got the equipment that could yank them out of the ground, meaning the highway. But other than that, what'll happen from here on will be, BBC who will handle that. We have to purchase plantings to put in there yet, but the BBC will do the work on it. Might have to ask the guys maybe to dig a hole or two.
and what, that's something that was budgeted that like we had, I just. It's like, feel like the communication and like how these like projects and things like that, I'm not saying that they're bad to do. Just would like to, like, it's just all of a sudden we come in and there's a bill.
I could swear that we talked about it. I mentioned that he was going to make it the same shape on both sides of the driveway. And that he was going to be doing that work.
Does that, I think Dave or Dad, do you guys remember?
I don't remember voting. Yeah. Well, looking up whether it was voted on, it was a discussed item, yes. We don't vote on everything that we need to spend money on. But we do discuss them.
If it's a budgeted item, we don't vote on it, but if it's something that comes up that's like a different and new, my understanding is that we do normally. And I just think that there's like protocol that kind of should be followed so that we could just have the opportunity. Most of the time it'll be like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Okay, good, move forward. And, vote on it and move forward. But if it's, I feel like it's important to have those communications and have the discussions. And maybe, maybe there was a time that, Margaret sat down and talked about it or that, but I don't, and I can go back through, I don't think that we ever voted or. I know that we discussed.
Okay.
Making changes out front, but I don't remember. Hold on, any prices or any estimates being shared.
So noted. So with the bills,
And so that one, I know that it's on here, what the line that it's coming out of. But can you tell me which one that is in their budget? Cause I don't have the.
landscape. 1620. 100,000 AA. Mhm. 16, 20, 300. Voucher rate. 1620.4.
Building control gets funded.
Buildings contractual expenditures.
We don't have to make.
No. No, we had budgeted originally 20,000 on it. Estimated 20 and the low of last it's estimated is 12,306. So no line transfer for that.
That. That.
One thing that we found out about, and I informed him yesterday when I spoke to him, and he does not have a tax exemption number. He had sent us for materials with tax. I told him we cannot pay the tax. He said, okay, fine, take that off the building. So we just paid for the materials themselves, no tax. He did not put tax on labor.
Credit card payments, I cannot pull that up. Again, I'm doing, but you guys all look at that or, okay. So I don't know what credit card payments would do. I see them, with the numbers. But I'm okay.
I reckon most of it was for stamps. And then there were. Had the two. Stuff like gloves and safety glasses. Yeah.
Maybe sometime. You can-
He's only need be able to put something between her computer and the rules. It's only over the day.
Yeah, but it's just this. Probably something.
Should be one on there for. For CD antenna, if that thing, right, except for everyone, that's it. Rush off.
Deductible would probably be- Pardon? Our deductible would probably be more than that, much than the other.
Yeah.
For $93.
Deductible, so,
Okay, so heavy duty utility cart. Yeah. Anthem. And then, Pacific. Blue
No. What was that called? Heavy duty cart? Yeah. We got that for Maureen.
Oh,
That was for her, for all the court records, the boxes she's carrying back and forth from one office to the next, and
but it's got the-
That-
it-
I'm-
it's not on-
right, but I'm
I'm pretty-
just a little,
And
we
then
don't let jump.
safety glasses and. Gloves. Then, paper towel rolls. And then from a. Different. There's batteries and cables. Yep. And then, oh, okay, it does say no, take it out. And then the stamps. divided between like clerk and supervisor. Um, also for court and assessor and, yeah. Everybody, yeah. Except highway. Everybody that sends out letters.
Okay.
Anything else with bills? Do we hear a motion?
Pay the bills.
Second? Margaret? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Okay, next is the line transfers. Line budget transfers.
Kind of go over what, I mean, I know I sat in last year on it, but just to kind of get an idea of just finishing up paperwork. The unanticipated revenue that comes in, and then we're going to match that against where we went over, our budget lines. But one thing that it just kind of came to mind when Carrie was going through, there's some of those things that coming from, we were below budget. I don't remember what one was said. Does that get taken into account on this? Cause I guess what I'd like to see is, you know, in the game of what I'm looking at is, I'd like to see this money go into the general fund. If we didn't spend it, you know, we build up that general fund. Does that money get where we're below?
Basically, any money that is not used at the end of this year does go right to general fund. No matter what account it's in, it goes right to general fund,
Okay.
because we start with a whole new budget.
Perfect. So what we're doing here is we're taking and offsetting all the ones that were in the red, but starting next, whatsoever we're below, we'll have money that go in the general fund.
Yeah.
I guess the only one that I'm struggling with is, why we're taking the 30,000 from the wind power post fees. And using that to, I thought that we were gonna be using the ARPA funding for like, you know, the 22,000 park equipment and capital outlay. My understanding was that that was, and some of these other ones where we're over, we had discussed and said that we were going to be using ARPA funding for that. So, and we have not discussed as a group where we're going to be using the wind power post community agreement. So that's that's one of the questions that I'm having.
Did Shelby say anything about that? I did not have that discussion with her, so I don't know. All I did is I went through all the water districts and I was looking to see where money was coming from and going to on the water districts. I'm sorry, I did not look at this first page right here and I see what you're talking about. Where money, the 30,000 is being taken from the wind power host fees. Therefore, it's being transferred to one of the other lines below. It's also taking 58,000 from Hemlock Ridge.
That's
That's
the
gonna be a
wash though, because they took the 58,250 and I think that Lee said in the email,
58,310 down below.
there's a $60 discrepancy, and she was gonna be looking at that. She wasn't sure where that discrepancy was coming in.
Shelby?
No, Lee sent the the line transfer explanations. And in there, she did that, which I appreciated, thank you. Uh,
I did not have a conversation whatsoever about the 30,000 wind power host fees. So I honestly don't know about that. I know that the money just came in about a week or two ago, but that's it. That's all I know.
cause it says, for the 8030.402, but we're just not sure why there is a difference of $6.
You said that Lee was checking into that one. So- Correct? That's the Hemlock Ridge solar discrepancy.
Yeah, she just said that because of the storm, she shared that she's been working from home. So she didn't have this.
Yeah, we didn't have internet, which means we had no phone service. It just went back up yesterday afternoon.
So that was, I figured that, she would look through her spreadsheets and be able to say where that discrepancy was.
Transfer.
Yeah, like just said, I think that should be coming out of ARPA and
We already said
Well,
ARPA was gonna be-
You can't just take ARPA out, just throw it anywhere,
no,
because I have to send end of June, I think it is this year,
right,
a complete listing, and it has to go for specific items for the municipality, for the county, for the town.
but we've been voting on and doing resolutions where we say this is going to come out of ARPA funding,
Yes.
but like those items, so as long as those items line up, we should be keeping a tally of those expenses. And that ARPA funding should be transferred into those appropriate accounts. I know we talked about parks, equipment and capital outlay, and that was one of them. So, doing that. I guess is one and
I got a feeling you can't throw ARPA in there for doing the line transfers, because you have to identify exactly where that ARPA money is going. And that
But you
might be
can't- I
why
mean-
she didn't put ARPA down for that right there.
But-
I can't, because I haven't addressed this with her, I can't really answer that, I don't know.
I guess that to me, it makes sense that, because it wasn't something that we had budgeted in. And so it's kind of like the same thing as the, Hemlock Ridge or the other like research and controlled expenditures where we know that money, it's a wash. We know that those fundings are from intervenor funding. It's not budgeted funds because it's not really, it's for that specific thing. And it comes in and it goes out and it's the same thing. And I feel like our ARPA funding is kind of like that too, because we're not necessarily budgeting it this year, it wasn't necessarily budgeted in, but it is that we're transferring, using those funds on specific items that we voted on and discussed.
We haven't got ARPA funds yet, physically got, one.
Yes.
We have, so yeah, then we just pick it up. Okay. Yeah, then we. Cause if we didn't physically have the money, we have to pay for this somehow. So, but if we physically have the money, that's what we left it. to do.
So what's the problem with using the wind power host fees instead of ARPA?
Because then you're saying that, so when someone comes and asks, it's the same thing, just because it's a win, we should be able to say. The host community agreement funds that have come in have been used for X, Y, and Z. We should be able to tell our community members, this is how we as a town board chose to use this funding.
But why just
tossing it into
wind
like this-
power? Why just wind power? We have money that comes, we got money that comes in from the county. Did you see in the hub today? We're getting the same amount as we get every year. Are we going to tell the community? Bless you. Hope you're not getting it. Are we supposed to tell the community how we spend every single one of those dollars that we get from the county as well?
So I think that there's a difference when you look at like the ARPA funding, for example, that's not necessarily anticipated revenue. The wind power host community agreement, we know that that's something that we've talked about as a community that has been a hot topic. And to be able to go through and say like, okay, these funds went to reduce your town taxes. These funds went towards, they were just incorporated into our budget so that that amount wasn't, or these funds were used for the park, or these funds were used for, what is it that we're using those funds for? I think that that's not a bad thing to be able to do. As far as the, what funds is coming in from the county or others, yeah, like we should, not necessarily in the same capacity, but to be able to identify, this is a specific project, this isn't taxes, this isn't, a normal revenue stream that we're gonna get every year. And so this is something that
But it is.
the host community agreement,
Oh, not the host community, agreement, no, but the county sales tax.
right?
And
so-
we anticipate getting that amount
Right, so
thereabouts.
and that's in our
And we
budget,
use that for helping keep our taxes down.
and that's a budgeted regular, when we talk about our budget, that's in
Yeah.
there. Host community agreement is
Is-
not an annual thing.
No,
And it is something that, there's been in the
It's actually
newspaper.
above. we can use it, we feel like
Absolutely.
the town.
Eh,
And
we
here it
do have-
is helping help pay down the tax by paying other bills. So we don't have to tax people more.
But we've already earmarked that for our, that's what our agreement.
Like, we
That's how we've
voted,
been going forward.
you need me to get it, I can get it.
Think others, I see it.
Okay,
Well, without talking to Shelby, I don't know what the story is there. All I know is that and Lee keeps a spreadsheet on it. Anytime we use ARPA money, she has exactly what it was used for and runs that spreadsheet for us. And she also keeps copies of those bills, because I gotta send out that to the public government.
Right.
So
so,
that's here, taking that money. I remember what you're talking about, where we're talking about using the host fees rather than ARPA funds. But now you want to throw the ARPA funds in here in place of the host fees. That's what it sounded like to me.
and have the items that we voted on, saying, this is going to be, we are going to be using ARPA funds for this, have they been taken out? Has that been done?
Yeah, I can see it there. John, you said that you didn't know why she did that anyway.
I honestly don't.
Well,
No.
that's what I'm saying, and we should know, why did she think? Was there any way if we passed this that we're gonna put ARPA funds in and it be put back?
In other words, substitute the ARPA funds, money being drawn from ARPA funds rather than from the wind power host.
Well, once we know also why she did, that's the
Okay.
biggest thing, why did you do it? You
Because
didn't-
we do have, tomorrow's the deadline on this.
Right, that's what I'm
The
saying.
other one, we could always postpone. This one, it's the end of the year, we have to do these line
Well,
transfers.
can it be turned backwards after?
After I find out what she has to say
That's what
about
I'm
this,
saying.
tomorrow morning, I'll get a hold of her and I'll see what I can do. I'll get you an answer from her, find out why she did it. If you want to go ahead and pass this with the understanding you'd rather it say ARPA, or the monies come from ARPA rather than the wind power. And she says, oh, that's fine, then we can do it that way. I don't know, I just, back here, I got a feeling that we can't do it from ARPA.
Mhm.
not for this here. But I'm not the expert. That's why she has the job she has. So I can ask her what the story is. If we can't do it, I will let you know exactly what she has to say.
That's just the biggest thing to me is we just don't know at this point why she did.
Right.
And it's one of the largest line items. So,
And we, if you don't mind, if you could send out all of what we have, the ARPA budget. So far.
yeah.
I'm not saying at all that we shouldn't balance our, that we shouldn't do things. I just wanna make sure that we have them, that when I have people come up and ask and say, hey, where was this, or do you know, could you tell me kind of where these funds were used and how this was done, or could you tell me that I can say, oh yeah, and that they're not gonna go back and be like, wait, you told me that this was used for, to lower taxes, but I see it all going through the transfer to, whatever, I think that and but
You know, something I just thought, when we're talking, that 30,000, that money is what I had planned on using at the park, if I remember right. And it was poo-poo not to use that money at the park. You felt ARPA should be used at the park.
right,
So
for next
therefore,
year,
that 30,000 wasn't used at the park whatsoever. So that comes back to this. That's what I'm trying to remember.
because that doesn't make sense, because we didn't budget it in for year, it comes back to 2022.
No. I had planned on the 30,000 being utilized for park renovations, the work that the guys have been doing down there, materials, whatnot. Because for whatever reason, we couldn't use that money down there. The general feeling was we couldn't use wind power monies down there. Use the ARPA instead, which ARPA can be utilized for that. There's no problem with that. So therefore, we didn't spend 30,000 from wind power. So that went back into our line items. And that might be part of the reason why she's doing this now. I'm just second guessing. I honestly don't know.
My thing is,
I agree. I can ask her tomorrow morning, see what the story is, and I'll send out an email to everybody at that time. So we do a tentative approval. How does this get worded then? Come on, Dave.
I can, I move that we, well, before we make, does anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, I do. And hospital and medical insurance, we're showing 3,890 that we're over. And on our estimated budget, we were under about 3,000. Did we get a lot of bills, or are we paying for next year's prepaying? Is that why that went over so much? 'Cause that should be kind of right on. Okay, so
It might not, your one line you're looking at might be hospital, but there's also dental and vision also, right?
yeah, I'm looking at the 90,800, and we're about,
Where it's going in.
and Damn, okay, right there. So. That's the third one. Kick it over. Okay, I see it. So that's why, I mean, because that's usually right on, but that's why that we're gonna be over, and then we'll get people paid back in, and it'll even it back out. Yeah, okay. Okay. So when we do this budget thing on this estimated sheet, we're not, we're not estimating for this amount coming in. It's just, that's what's come in, right, to that. That's not us, that's just what's come in. See, I was assuming this was estimated through the end of the year. This, I'm sorry, this one, I'm talking about the budget, I'm using the budget sheets that we went with. Yeah. And. Yeah, okay, all right, so. Yeah, okay, so, okay. That's what, I was assuming that estimated was for the year. And we were looking good on a bunch of things. Why we're looking good on a bunch of things. Okay. Good.
Anything else? Oh, with the water? No. No, I scratched my head on a number of things, but it frustrates me because we have so many water districts. And all money, when we deal with the town of Albion and the village of Albion, all those monies get handled through Water District One. So that's why Water District One looks like it's got a ton of money in it. And that's because that's basically our main fund, our banking account. For the rest of the water districts, when we need money in a water districts 7 and 9 are very small. Very few people have signed up in those water districts. So as a result, what we have to pay out in debt service is greater than what we bring in income from water sales. So we constantly have to be transferring money into those water districts. It just frustrates me, that is all, that we
Yeah,
have to play that game with all these water districts. And part of the reason why we had to do an increase on water sales is to help pay for some of this stuff, because we need to build up our cash reserve in the water districts as well. Anything else? Does she want to make the motion?
if possible, or
Clarification?
with clarification from Shelby in regards to whether we should be transferring from ARPA or from the wind post need. Then it would be what was that? It should be the same wind community post need and funds or okay, wind power host needs, yeah, that's a nice. Host needs or what? Or our.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried then. something I've been considering. And they used to do it here back before computers were available. And that was, the workshops were directly before the town board meeting, so people sat and they went through all the bills and took a look at it, and we discussed them and whatnot. And then you went into your board meeting. And I've noticed, because I've attended a few other town board meetings in other towns, that they still do that. I'm considering that because like right now, and I know this is an exception, but like George was just going through all the bills just now. Everybody's got a computer, and I know Lee sends this stuff out in a timely fashion for everybody to have a chance to look them over. Do we need to, starting in January, maybe get together at 6:30 and have a half hour just to discuss the bills? And then start a board meeting at 7:00?
Are you saying that when it, instead of
Instead
workshop,
of the workshop?
place in the workshops, cause I guess my thing is like these came out, 2 days.
Well, like I
And
said,
so-
usually in timely fashion, this is the end of the year, this is the exception.
Cause like if we can consistently get stuff a week ahead of time,
Which
That-
does she or doesn't she?
it has gotten a lot better. It did not, last year was not. This year has gotten a lot better.
Okay,
Interject right there. I'm probably at fault with that.
okay,
Because a lot of my vendors know the board meeting is coming up. I get my bills, maybe a week before the end of before the board meeting.
right,
So Lee, I have to process them, then Lee processes them. Then she can kick it off to you guys. So
Right.
sometimes it's tough to,
right, and I think,
and she checks with me before she closes her books.
right, the way that this year, the way that she's done it, that has been a lot better that I really appreciate, and I've emailed her and said this, is that she sends out an initial one that we can start going through, and then she'll send out another one if there's updated, like, oh, there was another bill from Napa, or, oh, we had this added in, or this one was changed, and she has even a little key where like, one is a like upper arrow, one is a squiggly line, and like, this is the same, this one changed, this, so that when we go through, we can see, oh, okay, I've already looked at that one, I don't need to, oh, this one's got additional stuff in it, or, so instead of it being 40 things to look through, within 24 hours of the meeting, it's 5 or 6, it's significantly less.
That could be done. I would be open to even hours before I know that.
now some of our workshops though, because of the topics or whatever, take a little bit longer than
But you're just saying tomorrow.
half hour, and I'm just talking about just to go over the bills and discuss all this. Carrie's been good in the last year, insofar as when she's had a question on a bill, she's written back to Lee and I, questioning it, and we've answered her questions. And therefore, when we got to the board meeting, she didn't have any queries about anything at that time.
I personally would love to reduce it. We could have the workshop before the meeting and then have the meeting. I would actually oppose to that.
I'd love to have it all on the same day too.
What I was gonna say, Dave, is if you wanna come at 6, because maybe you can't look, or you really look at them, the bill, you can come at 6, the town hall is open.
On Wednesdays.
So there's nothing preventing you from coming to work.
No, I,
And then if Sean is here, you can still, he is here, you can call ahead and say, okay, I'm gonna come at 6. I don't know if it has to be in stone or, you can set it at 6:30 if that's what you want. There's nothing saying you need to come early.
no, I understand that. I was just thinking sort of along the lines of carrier, having everything when it's fresh in mind, having one workshop slash, monthly meeting on the same day if it could be done. That way, everybody's here, with it even takes an hour. And it does reduce the amount of meetings, maybe time that we need to, especially once the wind energy and the solar starts going.
Think about it. It's not something we decide on tonight.
Yeah.
I just threw that out there. Think about what we can do for our workshop, where we can become more efficient. For us to be sitting here like now, and we've had a few other board meetings like that, talking about the bills when we could have resolved it outside the meeting, so our meetings can get. Let's look at.
Rewind.
Are you and Gail gonna be here? Because that's what I've been trying to do, if I have any questions, I'm trying to get them here a couple minutes early. Like, okay, yeah, here's the question, like,
If I know that you're gonna be here at 6:30, I'll come early.
the other thing is, I mean, from sitting out there, when you guys, when we're talking about this, they have no idea what we're talking about. And it's pretty interesting, they'd like to know too. And, kind of know what.
You ever been to a county legislative meeting?
Move right along.
Yeah, they do, but they don't describe, it's just resolution number, okay, I make that resolution, boom, boom,
That's
boom.
all they've already
And they don't need
discussed
it, yeah, they've already discussed it prior to. I'm just, because I'm sitting there, I'm scratching my head, what's this resolution about? What's that one for? They don't even list what the resolution's about. Okay, like I said, take that into thought. Do I hear a motion for the end of the meeting?
Well, hold on, one more.
Oh, yes,
Just-
sir.
Just I'm gonna make a comment again, and Gary kind of filled me in on it on the way up. When I see us, and I know it's intervening funds, and I know it's not coming out of somebody's money, but it's not coming out of, is the 58,250 for the lawyer fees and everything about, when do we know or find out and get the information about the research, contractual expense and all that? For Hemlock Ridge, the money that, when did we kind of get an update? Get maybe, maybe,
Yeah, like, I think what he's asking for is the reports from Lobama and, like the reports that go to the ORES in regards to attorney fees and what they're like. Those items.
So in other words, you wanna see the billing that gets sent to the state for reimbursement.
Well,
purposes.
not the
really,
bill, what they
it's
found
the-
out.
What, like, what the reports are from the government, or from the other engineers or the experts that were used as they were doing the review.
They could do the dummy down work, but that's fine, at least something.
Okay. I would have to, I'll take a look at that, see what I can come up with. I'll talk with Bridget, I'll talk with Dwight, and I'll talk with, Kathy. Those are the three primary people.
As far as on their, which, being the town board, which.
I can do that. I'll check with them and see if they can give us a synopsis.
Like George said, dummy it down, don't use the big word. Give us, this is
Wait a
what's
minute.
going here and this is.
2 out of 3 people that I just mentioned are lawyers.
They don't know.
And Bridget, if you're listening in. Okay, I will. I also received today, I know you made the motion. Do I hear a second? Okay, before we vote. I received in the mail yesterday a new file, if anybody's interested in looking at it, that Heritage sent to ORES, which is all the documents that ORES had requested from them. Great big fat 5-inch binder sitting on the conference room table.
You made a
Usually we
copy
get
for-
2.
Copy of.
Yeah, okay. Is that the same? I saw you would forward something out. Okay, well, the hard
Just
copy is in there. That's some bedtime reading material. Oh, yeah. Okay, we had a motion, we had a second. All in favor? Opposed? So carried. Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, that's no mine.
No, I'm not gonna tell you anything, George. Yes. That's what I said I'd do. I talked to her in the morning.
Yeah,
and
no. You got your hands free with all of it.
why won't that turn on? Okay, everybody make sure you turn your mics off for a second.